Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the regular meeting of Ferdy City Council held on August 12th, 2025. Kisukukit. We acknowledge the city of Fernie is located within Kukanamakas, the unceded territory of Yakutat Nucleate First Nation. We recognize that we live and work within their vast lands. Akanahunik are from Yakutat Nucleate and are members of the Taha-speaking peoples of British Columbia, Idaho, and Montana. And I will call the meeting to order at 6:31 p.m. and thank everybody in attendance this evening for coming. We have made we're going to recommend a change to the agenda. The fire hall previously hadn't been on the agenda, and I appreciate that many people are here to speak to Prentice Park as an issue related to the fire hall. So we have added a piece of correspondence, and we will move it up to the beginning of the agenda so that people have an opportunity to speak, and immediately following the public participation period, we will deal with that piece of correspondence, and that will allow those folks who are here to speak. You're welcome to stay, but you can leave at that time if you like, when that issue is completed. So with that, I will move on to the following item 3.1 and look for a mover and a seconder for the following staff recommendation that a late item 14.1, statutory approval of the fire hall loan authorization bylaw, be added to correspondence on the agenda, and that the correspondence items be brought forward to after the public participation period and and that the agenda of the August 12th, 2025 regular council meeting be adopted as amended. Moved by Councillor McIsaac, seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Any discussion? All those in favor? And this new configuration has got me swiveling my head a bit, so I'll try and make sure I get everybody. Item 4.1, the following staff recommendation is the minutes of the July 8th, 2025 regular council meeting be adopted. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Audia Kelly. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you.
But should this be on Facebook, City of Fernie's Facebook page? Live feed as it usually is? Currently it is not. People at home don't have an opportunity to watch.
Sorry, I'll look to Ms. Rhodes, and we are working on that. It's currently live on YouTube.
Why not the City of Fernie Facebook page?
We're working on that, Mr. Inglis. So we got your point. We'll just pause until we ensure it's live on Facebook as well. No pressure, Ms. Rhodes. It's now live. Thank you. So I'll now invite the public in attendance or participating electronically who wish to comment on items listed on the meeting agenda in accordance with section 3.7.3 of the procedure bylaw. To address council, except speakers must not address council regarding a matter for which a public hearing must be held or has been held pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of the matter or adoption of the bylaw. Speakers must not address council regarding a permit for which public notice must be given or has been given pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of issuance of the permit. And a speaker may only address the council for a maximum of 3 minutes. Speakers, when you approach the microphone, you're asked to state their full name and community of residence. And I would also ask that we maintain a respectful atmosphere here this evening. So from that perspective, no cheering, no jeering, even looking at the speakers list, not everyone is here to speak to Prentice Park. So please keep a respectful attitude. Thank you. And with that, I'll ask our corporate officer to invite the first speaker to the podium.
Certainly, Your Worship. Our first speaker is Valerie Desir.
Thank you very much. Pardon? Okay. Good evening. My name is Val Desire, longtime resident of Fernie since 1981. Just to be clear, I'm 100% in favor of a new fire hall. The problem is the place. At the open forum, when you originally had it, I read the covenant for everybody who attended. And at that time, we were assured there would be a referendum so that the people could have a chance to vote on their preference, money-wise, as well as the placement of the fire hall. That was not done. You voted at one council meeting, 3 readings in one session, did not give us a chance to express our views. I find this pretty abhorrent, especially when there's been no referendum. The money, the finagling of the money has deleted that process apparently, but that should not happen. People who value that park, who have walked in that park, played in that park, valued that park for 51 plus years, we deserve a chance to maintain that park as is. And yes, we should have a referendum, whether you like it or not. You are one mayor with a council. There's been many before you. There's going to be many after you. We are the public. We pay all your salaries and your benefits. And we deserve to have a say in where this fire hall goes. Had you built on 901 2 years ago, the fire personnel could have been in a building over there. And now it's going to be another 2 years. Your term in office will be up by then. So are we going to have to do this all over again? I don't know. But I'm telling you, this is not a fair way to treat the people. We want to be heard. We want to be respected as well. And I think you've done us a disservice. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Desire. Thank you for acknowledging her words, but I would appreciate if you didn't clap, just so we can get through all our speakers. Mr. Inglis, I asked you to be respectful. We've always treated you respectfully. Can you please stop that? Thank you.
Your worship, next up is George Wilson.
Hello. George Wilson, longtime Fernie resident. I prepared a letter on behalf of our family, the Wilson family. Number of us still live around here. Anyway, I'm just gonna read the letter and we can take it for what it is. A letter to the editor from a 1991 edition of the Free Press has been circulated through social media over the last week or so. This letter dealt with the significant and factual information related to the donation of the large tract of land to the city of Fernie in honor of Bill Prentice, a past president of the Crow's Nest Industries Company. We stress the word factual because our father was instrumental in creation of this plan. And as a senior manager in the company at the time the donation arrangement was made, he was responsible for ensuring the details of the agreement were specific and non-debatable. As you can see in the referred letter, he had a firm belief the agreement would stand the test of time. As the makeup of the population of Fernie has changed to an ever-increasing number of new Fernieites, the history of how this type of donation came to be has been lost. The city was founded through coal exploration, and Crow's Nest Industries was formed to exploit and market this precious commodity. Our great-grandfather, William Ritson Wilson, was the president of that company as of the start in 1898 and remained in that position for many years. The company was deeded a large portion of land that stretched north from Fernie up the east side of the Elk River, approximately 250,000 acres, for its support in building the railway through the valley. A significant portion of this land was in and around Fernie. Some of these lands are in town, are where the airport subdivision, the swimming pool, and large sections of the annex are located today. The lands north of town were managed under a tree farm license, 27, and allowed for many uses: logging, trapping, guide outfitting, cattle grazing, gravel extraction are examples of those uses. And because of this multi-use management philosophy of the company, many people were not even aware of it being private land. The point of this letter is to showcase the history of the connection and beneficial relationship the city of Fernie and surrounding areas enjoyed with the landowner once named Crow's Nest Industries. The city was able to extend its boundaries, incorporating much needed land for an ever increasing population. City council and staff must have been aware of this formal agreement. It is apparent to us that this century-old relationship has been completely disregarded, as the mayor and council chose to ignore the terms of the donation as noted in our father's letter to the editor. For the city to literally ignore the contract a previous council signed may be illegal. It is certainly unethical. Signed, the W.R. Wilson family. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Next, your worship, is Rob Fox.
Mr. Fox, welcome.
Hi, my name is Rob Fox. I'm a 23-year Fernie resident. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but my wife made me sign the paper, so here I am. I want to start off by saying that me and my wife, as well as I believe the majority of Fernie residents, recognize the need for a new fire hall. It's an important job. It's a very busy area. We need something functional, and we need something that's going to last into the future. The problem we have, of course, is the same as a lot, and that's taking donated lands from Apprentice Park. It seems the main reason for not choosing 902 was the size of the site. For whatever reason, it looks as if we didn't recognize the area, the 9th Street extension, that we know is going nowhere. We're not ever likely to build a road from 2nd Avenue to the railway track. Why that wasn't included in the lot size is puzzling to me. And I feel like the residents have been misled on the requirements. That site is perfectly big enough. It's got even room with the 30-meter setback for drive-through bays, which I have some questions as to why we need that, but nonetheless, it does fit there with the 30-meter setback. For whatever reason, the future use seems to be co-users, seems to be the biggest factor for choosing Prentice Park. And I don't understand it. The RCMP have said they're not interested in being part of it. The BC Ambulance has said they're not interested. Putting a childcare in the fire hall seems to me to be somewhat ludicrous. In any event, without the future co-users, that site is big enough. 902 is big enough, and in my opinion, a suitable site. So all I'd like to say is we rethink taking Prentice Park and relook at 902. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fox.
Your worship, we have the Fernie Childcare Society.
A different agenda item, I believe.
It is.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Shelby Dominic. I currently live in Baines Lake, but I was born in Fernie and I continue to work in Fernie as well. I am the manager at Fernie Childcare Society, and I am here on behalf of our Board of Directors. So thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. In the agenda package, you will see a lease modification agreement between the City of Fernie and Fernie Childcare Society. I am here to request your support in expanding our programming at the Max Church Community Center and to request that you follow staff recommendations to endorse and execute the lease modification. By adding this additional 868 square feet, we would be able to create up to 220 new childcare spaces, which would help to address Fernie's critical childcare shortage. In order to continue to provide a quality childcare program, we'll be seeking approval from Director Logan for renovations to add an additional child's toilet and sinks to the classroom. With his approval and appropriate permits applied for, we also request that our permits be prioritized so that we can begin our renovations and be operational as soon as possible. Our request aligns directly with the city's strategic plan priority of creating a livable community. Specifically, we are leveraging existing city-owned facilities to create additional childcare spaces. Expanding licensed childcare supports working families, builds community resilience, and addresses a key local need. We currently have nearly 200 children on our wait list, so this expansion would make a real difference, considering that Wild Wapiti has their wait list closed and that the proposed childcare center next to the aquatic center and dirt jumps is still 2 years away. Fernie Childcare Society is the first $10 a day childcare center in the Elk Valley and has been operating as a nonprofit society since 2007. We employ 15 certified educators and provide inclusive care for children from 10 months to 5 years old. Our mission is to enhance the lives of children, families, and our community, and this expansion supports that mission. We are also proud to be a reliable partner with the City of Fernie, including discussions on future co-use of the fire hall facility and further expansions within the Max Turk Community Center. Thank you for your time and consideration this evening, and we look forward to continuing our work with the city to expand access to affordable and reliable childcare.
Thank you so much.
Next up, we have Bill Saylor.
Welcome.
Evening, everybody. Bill Saylor, 45-year resident of Fernie. Fire department is amazing. I mean, these guys are unbelievable. They need a new fire hall. I don't think there's a person here that doesn't agree with that. But not in Prentice Park. You know, there's guys in here that I played ball with at Prentice Park, Poopy and Billy Wilcox and the guys, and you know, one time we had a 32 team men's, and it was a pretty good league, tournament in Fernie. Every motel room was full, every bar was full. Like, it was a great time. And one of the guys on our ball team, you know, he had a nickname Screw Loose, and he started a little bit of an altercation. We were playing the fire department, as a matter of fact, and these guys are all in good shape, eh? We won the game 6-4. I'll just throw that in. But anyways, Obsy, we called him Screw Loose. He got in a little altercation with one of the guys. And I'm standing out at center field with one of these Edmonton guys. And he's looking around and he says, you know what, partner? And I believe it. I believe this guy's been around, eh? He says, you know, I played ball in many, many ballparks. He says, I don't think I've seen one that's more beautiful than this. Why the hell would we want to disturb that when there's about 4 or 5 different locations for that fire hall? I mean, let's leave that Prentice Park alone, like the Wilson family. They donated. I think even the Wilson family even gave us the bloody city hall. So I just don't think that that's the proper place for the fire hall. And you get people in the hospital, they finally get to bed, they're sick, they finally get to bed, and then they wake up at 2 a.m. with a goddamn siren. You know, it just doesn't make sense to me. And why don't we have a referendum on this? Get us a referendum, and then we'll let you know how we feel. If we lose the referendum, fly right at it. That's all I got to say, and nice to see everybody, and nice to see some local people.
Thank you, Mr. Saylor.
Next up, your worship, is Bill Wilcox.
Good evening. Name is Bill Wilcox, longtime resident of Fernie, longtime ball player in all the parks in and around Fernie. I just have a comment for you. Back when I was in high school in Richmond, BC, my father was adamant about saving green spaces. And he lost his battles with city council many times over. And if you want to see the result, go to Richmond. If you keep taking away ball fields, parks, and this kind of stuff, you're going to end up in the same boat that Richmond was. They agreed we need a new fire hall for sure. A lot of our friends are firefighters. Just great. Bad location. I gotta agree with Billy, 2 o'clock in the morning when the sirens go off, right beside the hospital. I don't think so. You know, it's not a good plan. Anyways, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilcox.
Next up, we have Elena Anselmo.
Good evening, Mayor Milligan, Council, City staff, and residents of Fernie. My name is Elena Anselmo, and I reside at 20 Mount Trinity, and I was born and raised in Fernie. Tonight, I am asking Council to make a motion to save Prentice Park and change the location of the fire hall build. We now have 1,640 signatures. I will say that again, 1,640 signatures. Many were motivated when the proposed referendum was taken away from the citizens of Fernie. While it was technically a funding referendum, for many, it was their one chance to vote to save Prentice Park and stop this project in its current form. And as you can see tonight, there's a lot of support here. In 1991, Council approved building a pool at Prentice Park, but after strong public opposition and a passionate appeal from those tied to the park's original purpose, Council reversed course. The pool was built elsewhere. That proved one thing: when Fernie residents speak clearly and loudly enough, Council listens. We are at a crossroads again. We are not anti-fire hall. We are pro-community. Fernie needs a new fire hall, but it should not come at the cost of one of our few remaining green spaces, Cervello Field, or the promises made to protect it. We have the support in forms of a letter from the Prentice family and the Wilson family, and a letter from all the ball teams signed here. We have it tonight. We are instrumental in creating and legally protecting Prentice Park as a recreational land. This is not just a field, it's a part of Fernie's history and a commitment that should not be broken. It has been said that too much work and money has gone into Prentice Park to turn back now. That is not true. The Arcadis technical report confirms that both Site 2 at Prentice Park and Site 1 at 902 2nd Avenue meet the technical requirements for a new fire hall. And Site 1 was initially ranked higher by multiple internal stakeholders. The difference is simple. One destroys parkland, the other doesn't. Some say changing sites could risk grant funding. This is misleading. There is still time before the grant application is finalized and before the borrowing bylaw is adopted. These are not irreversible decisions. Let's also remember the spirit of this land. In 1964, a peace pipe ceremony was held here, then known as the North End Grounds, to symbolically lift the Fernie curse, a moment of healing between the local Indigenous and the residents of Fernie. That history matters. We've been here before. Let's do the right thing. Save Prentice Park. Build the fire hall at 902 2nd Avenue. Let's make the motion tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anselmo.
Next, we have Chris Inglis.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, citizens of Fernie, everybody in the gallery. My name is Chris Inglis, resident of Fernie, 55 years. Currently live with my wife in Cranbrook and part-time here in Fernie, also a business owner in Fernie. Mayor, just, I don't sugarcoat anything I come here to say to you. It's just a lot of your staff members like to use the words lost in translation. And I followed up those words lost in translations with STARS air ambulance, how they won't be affected. Funny enough, it's kind of weird the CEO who made that statement isn't here tonight at the meeting. But I talked to STARS with my close ties to them because I suffered a brain aneurysm and I had to be flown by STARS. So I actually talked to them on the phone, went to Calgary to find out more information. And you can't say that that fire hall or any building will be affected by STARS coming in to continue service. Because what I was told was it depends on the weather, it depends on the flight pattern, and it depends on the aircraft available on which direction and what flight pattern Transport Canada chooses is the safest. So you can't say stars will be. They couldn't even tell me if it would be effective or not effective. So that's one thing I did follow up with. And also too, I talked with Shell Canada, their legal department. They have not granted you permission of the land. And one of the things, I talked to UBCM, and one of the things in the application, the city must have the land secured. You do not have the land secured. So that goes back to your borrowing of the $7 million, applying for the grant of $7 million. It's not a guarantee. You don't have the land secured. And also right now, one thing some people might have missed is the high density. You want to put this fire hall in the highest density populated place in Fernie with people, cars, trucks, bikes, ambulances, kids going to school, daycares. Like it's just the busiest 2 blocks in Fernie. And for how many people live in that area? We're going to say, I don't know, 300 people per apartment blocks times 6 of them. Like it's just the amount of people in that area is not a safe place for a fire hall to be dispatched from. So I hope you consider that also in your presentation. And I don't have time to go through all these pages I printed, but there's been some real high stuff on social media about the 4-3 vote. And that again, that's what we're playing in here tonight is the 4-3 vote. When you have time, I'd like to mail you this package and just show you what Josh Garlock uncovered. And it's just a pattern we're seeing here. And honestly, the firemen and the fire hall, they deserve a new fire hall. But you know what? And council and staff and everybody else been watching too much Chicago Fire. We don't need the drive-through bays. If you can't back the fire truck, driving me out. Those are my thoughts. 902 Bernie.
Thank you, Mr. Inglis.
Next, your worship, is Barb Zufa.
Ms. Zufa? Sorry, Deb, you'll have to turn the mic back on.
Hi, my name is Barbara Zuba, born and raised in Fernie. Don't want to be emotional. My dad was part of the committee that donated Prentice Park. He worked for Crow's Nest Resources, so went to Shell Canada in Lands Division. My heart is broken that everybody on this committee that has passed wanted this to be green space for our families. I started working for Crow's Nest and knew Bill Prentice when I was a young girl, respected the man and the honor that it is that that park was named for him means so much to myself and a lot of Fernie people. I really wish that you would reconsider the green space, please. And we do need a fire hall, but it's not there. Please reconsider it. Don't take that privilege of Mr. Prentice away. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Zufa, and never apologize for your emotions. We very much appreciate that. Thank you.
Next up is Ann Magic.
Ms. Magic.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and citizens of Fernie. My name's Ann Magic, and I've lived in Fernie for over 50 years. I feel that everything said tonight has been spot on. We need a new fire hall. We love our fire department, but we're concerned with the space. But the one thing I want to add that's a little different than maybe what was said is this was a donation. This was a covenant. This was given as a gift with the idea that it would stay a green space in perpetuity. So it makes me think, why would any citizen want to leave something to this city in good faith, thinking that possibly in 10, 20, or 50 years, that good faith is no longer there. So Prentice Park was left to the city in good faith as a green space. And as we know, we need green space. So I think it's actually almost unethical to take that away as a donation to our city. So thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Ms. Badger. Another folks online indicated they wish to speak.
We have Josh Gellick. Oh, maybe he put his hand down.
Sorry, he's still coming? Okay.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
We can hear you, Mr. Garlick. We can't see you. Can't see you.
I will start my video. How's that? My name is Josh Garlick, Fernie resident. Like many of the folks here tonight, my family has roots to the beginning of the development of this valley. We are the locals. Good evening, Mayor, councilors, and fellow Fernieites. The proposed fire hall apprentice is dividing us. We support our firefighters. They're stuck in a cramped temporary building in need of a modern facility, but paving over our green spaces is ignoring the community concerns. A growing petition of 1,640 signatures, nearly matching Milligan's landslide victory of 1701 in the 2022 election, shows that this plan is lacking broad support. The proposed alternative falls short, pushing James White Park as a replacement. This doesn't add green space. In fact, it removes it. You're going to clear forest near the river, removing habitat while ignoring the complete lack of flood protection there. This is not a solution. It's an environmental concern. Other sites like the old landfill lack accessibility and community spirit, forcing kids to play down a dusty old logging road on a reclaiming dump outside of town. This is the poor substitute. Meanwhile, the town reserves 902 for commercial use, touting terms like revenue in perpetuity to justify its easily calculated value. All the shops, offices, mixed-use development, and low-income housing are very easy to calculate. Yet this logic fails for the Prentice Green Space, whose cultural, community, and natural worth defies any of your formulas, making this irreplaceable. You cannot compare locations simply using a spreadsheet. This is not good leadership. The transparency here is lacking. Council rushed all three bylaw readings into one meeting in a couple of hours to chase the $7 million grant that's due September 12th and is not guaranteed, which, by the way, is up to $7 million. The rest is enabled by this new provincial rule that's going to allow you to borrow without any of our approval. We all expected a referendum. All of us, full stop. We wanted a referendum. We're not getting it. It was canceled, limiting our input. Also, tonight, can you please confirm that the RDEK has formally committed to the $1.4 million? This plan of yours hinges on a lot of potential funding. There's a restrictive covenant on Prentice Park. It's intended to protect the land for future generations and to protect it from councils like this. 3 months ago, council could have reassessed 902 for a mixed-use plan and listened to it. Instead, it claimed consultations were enough, shutting out residents and eroding the trust inside this community. You need to seriously consider that you may have missed the mark here, and you're not listening to the citizens on this one. Council chose this path despite strong opposition. Respect the restrictive covenant and commit to real public input. Fernie deserves the fire hall that saves lives and preserves our community. We all agree with that, every one of us, but you're doing this and you're forcing it without our voice. Thank you to our firefighters. You guys are true lifesavers and you deserve better than this. And I'm really sorry that you got dragged into the middle of it. It's really unfortunate. This growing list of 1,640 signatures against location, it needs to be compared to the 2022 vote. It's equivalent to Milligan or Madass's votes, and it's more than all the other council members. So I'm asking you guys to think about this one. If you want to play ball in Fernie and play politics in Fernie, please listen to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garlick. That's it? Okay, well, thank you, everybody who's spoken. That was very impactful and very much appreciated. So thank you very much. With that, we will move on to item 14, correspondence, and item 14.1, our late correspondence item, the statutory approval certificate for the loan authorization bylaw 2533. And I will look to Mr. Burnett if he has any comments, our CFO and acting CAO.
Thanks, Mayor Milligan. I don't have many comments, just that we heard from the province that our bylaw was approved. They said it was going to take 6 to 8 weeks and it took much shorter. So what this means is that we have approval to borrow the full amount of the fire hall if we proceed with the building.
Thank you, Mr. Burnett. We'll maybe take a short moment here while people depart the building. Okay. Ms. Rhodes, do you want to put us on recess for a bit?
Spinning out some paperwork the other day and I came across that book.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it's the little. I think we're ready, Ms. Rhodes. Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Burnett, I'm going to ask you to repeat yourself. There was a lot of noise in the background there.
Sure. I don't have much to add about that. The province approved the bylaw as it was submitted. They said it was going to take 6 to 8 weeks and it took much shorter. And what that means is we can borrow up to the $12 million to use for the purchase of this fire hall.
Thank you. Comments from council. Councillor Audie Kelly.
Thanks, Your Worship. CFO, there was a question asked about the RDK portion of the funding. Is that still in negotiation?
Thanks, Councillor Audie Kelly. It is still in negotiation. I think Mr. Garlick asked if it was formally approved, and it's not. We've had initial meetings with them, and we've informed them of the new amount. The definition in the agreement with them is the notional cost of one bay of the fire hall, but then there was also a flat amount in the agreement of $450,000. But since COVID, that amount has gotten a lot bigger. It's now 1.4 million, and we've told them of this amount. And we're also working on refreshing that agreement without capping this amount. But they have to wait for their budget process, which is not until the winter time. So I expect at that time it will be formally approved based on initial discussions with them. But as of right now, it is not.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Some of the things that were raised in the public participation period, I would just like to maybe address them for clarity. Mr. Burnett, this notion of the finagling of money, which is a bit of an unfair characterization, to say the least. But can you sorry to put you on the spot, encapsulate where we were and where we find ourselves in terms of financing, including changes the province has made in the last month and a half.
Sure. Thanks, Mayor Milligan. The term finagling, I'm sure it seems like that. We were all of council and all of staff also expecting a referendum as of like mid-June. And then, we had talked about this grant maybe being open in time for this project. We were hoping it was, and it ended up that it was open, and that was announced early July. And then a week or two later, the province announced that they were greatly increasing the borrowing limits. And so one of the conditions of the grant is that we have the rest of the money secured that the city needs for this project. And the only way we could do that was to take advantage of these new borrowing limits that the province legislated. And that came as a complete surprise to even me. My job is to manage the city's finances as best as I can. And to me, it seemed this $7 million opportunity was a no-brainer to pursue, especially given how well it times with this project. So, well, I get it. It seems surprising. It surprised even me, and it happened very fast, these two major changes in funding opportunities for the province. And our only other option for funding this thing is property tax. And that's our two major sources of revenue, property taxes and whenever grants are open. And part of my job is helping to chase these grants when they are open. So that was the only motivation behind changing this referendum. And that's kind of the timeline of how it all happened. And it happened very fast.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Another just point for clarity. The comment, I think, is correct. We have not had the covenant removed from the land because we're currently not in a position to do that because we don't have an approved, meaning adopted borrowing bylaw. Is that correct? Sorry, just to complete it, we're not even in a position to ask it as yet.
It's correct, it's not removed, but we've had many discussions with Shell, and the last they told us was that if council approves moving forward with this site and funding the fire hall, they are willing to remove the covenant on that plot. And I think at this point, it's worth just reminding council and those in attendance of what the process has been. Council, as everyone knows, decided on this site in January 2024. Before that decision, we had an open house, we had a survey, we pivoted last minute to explore an opportunity with Interior Health. There was 4 or 5 other sites that we looked at. And somebody said that 902 was a good option, and it's true, both sites were a good option. And council, and there was, pros and cons of both sites, many of which were brought up tonight. Cons of 902 was lack of commercial development space. Pros of the Prentice Park is proximity to highway. A con of Prentice Park was the ball diamond. These were all discussions that council entertained a year and a half ago, and then made the decision to go with Prentice Park. And it was a hard decision. And there was people on both sides. You're seeing a lot of people on one side tonight, and there's people on the other side too that aren't here, obviously, but it will remain a hard decision for council.
Yeah, I won't suggest it wasn't a hard decision. Given the feedback we've had tonight, it does remain a hard decision. I wanted to thank you, Mr. Burdett. I also wanted to ask Ms. Weir, maybe as the project lead, this question about, I know we've engaged a aviation navigation consultant in relation to the fire hall. Can you maybe speak to that if you have an opportunity?
Sure. Yeah, we've engaged Ron German of RG Heli Services Consulting to advise on any potential flight path considerations. Ron was recommended to us by the Interior Health staff as he's worked on recent and relevant studies in the area. His scope broadly includes reviewing the building location, the lighting, the heights of all the signage and lighting in the yard, and coordinating the design and construction of the project. So he will be developing a construction plan to ensure that even if a crane was required on site, that wouldn't impact the helicopter operations. And Ron introduced our team to the VP of Aviation for STARS, who agreed that he had no concerns with the current design. The helicopter manager from Interior Health has also been in attendance at our meetings and has been consulted along with the progress. So
Thank you. Very much appreciate that clarity. Any other questions or comments from council? At this sorry, Councillor Artie Kelly.
CFO, has the grant application been sent in?
Thanks, Councillor Artie Kelly. No, it has not. Next steps for this project would be September 9th council meeting. The borrowing bylaw will be brought back for adoption, and then there's also some resolutions that are needed as part of the grant application. So September 9th is the next scheduled fire hall related meeting. So that's another opportunity for people to come and speak as well on the project.
Thank you. Councillor Nixon. Oh, sorry, Councillor.
Thank you, Worship. I'm just curious about the siren comment. Maybe Chief Morgan could respond to that about the sirens keeping the patients up late at night with the departure and arrival and all that kind of stuff. Thank you.
Thanks, Your Worship, to Councillor. It's a weird one in that when you go code 3, which means lights and sirens, you're meant to, by law, have both your lights and sirens on if you're going to do anything that's outside of basic traffic law. I think in this instance, we were discussing it before when we were sort of thinking about 902, is that we'd make an agreement that we'd obviously, in those areas, you wouldn't be speeding anyway. And so maybe by the time you got to the highway, that's when you bring it in. Sirens come in constantly into the hospital with patients that are coming in to emerge. They don't turn their sirens off until they get to the parking lot. I understand it obviously would be disruptive to everyone in the neighborhood, but that's going to happen everywhere. And so, you know, I'm not going to be a chief for, you know, a lot longer, but I would say that I would make a policy that you'd follow the rules of the road until you got to the highway. And then therefore you wouldn't need a siren. But that's all I can say at this point.
Thank you, Chief. Councillor Artie Kelly.
Thanks, Your Worship. CFO, this one's for you again, and you apologies. Can you give us an idea of how much money has been spent to date?
I'm going to pass that to Ms. Weir.
I do have what we've spent to date specific to this site. I don't have the full history of what we've spent to date in scoping a new fire hall. So if that's the question, I will have to get back to you with that. But to date on this site, this year we've spent $71,000, and that's to do a geotechnical analysis, a phase 1 environmental site analysis, a servicing study, and then we've also have $250,000 committed for, or sorry, $240 committed for the detailed design of the facility, of which we are 50% through, and we have not paid that bill yet. So on top of the 71, there's the committed $250,000 for the design of the hall at that site.
Just to make sure I understood, and the design is 50% complete roughly?
Correct, yeah.
Thanks, Manager.
Thank you. Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Worship. Just a question about the 902 land as well. Do we have any idea what was there before? I mean, it was beside the railroad tracks. Somebody told me that there was a dry cleaner there at one point. I'm not sure what was there, or if we've done any soil investigations or anything to that point. I'm just curious about that.
I can't speak to what the previous uses were, but we have not done any environmental site assessments there yet.
And that would, of course, take time and more money.
Correct. The phase 1 of the ESA, which we did for the Prentice site, came back with favorable results, which means you don't need to proceed to the phase 2. So a phase 1 is, you know, like 5,000 and a phase 2 is more like 50 to 100,000. You have to do the drilling and soil samples and stuff. So if your phase 1 ESA comes back and recommends significant further investigation based on the historical uses and whatnot, then you go to a phase 2 ESA.
Thank you, Ms. Ware. Councillor Ramirez. Oh, sorry. This is. No, I acknowledge you first. Go ahead.
There's lots going on here, Your Worship. There's one thing that we have not explored in the last many discussions we've had on the fire hall. We have boxed ourselves into this notion that the funding has to happen connected with referendum. Funding, referendum seem to be sort of interrelated with each other. Is there any tools available within BC legislative landscape where you can actually run a referendum that is unconnected with the municipal finance authority framework? And the reason I'm asking here is and I agree with lots of people who've spoken tonight, there was an expectation that there would be a referendum, and we have taken away that opportunity with the citizens. And that's the reason why I oppose this in the first place. If there is an opportunity for us to run a referendum that is unconnected with the funding requirements, borrowing, all those things, set it aside and just run a referendum on whether you want a fire hall in Prentice Park or not. Is there any tools available for us? And I know this is an oddball question, and maybe you may have to do the research. I'm putting you in a spotlight, but that's something that we need to explore here.
Mr. Burdett, I know that's a tricky one that probably needs to dig into the Local Government Act or.
This may be a silly question, but you mean just an election that would have the two sites? Corporate officer may want to jump in, and I don't want to put her on the spot. But as far as I know, there's only ever been elections for mayor and council and whether to borrow money. And I don't know if that means there are tools to have an election of some other sort. If corporate officer doesn't know, we could maybe do some research while we're sitting here and answer your question more fully in a little bit. But off the top of my head, I don't know if there's a tool that exists that would allow that.
Excuse me, Your Worship.
No, please.
With a referendum, councillor, it is one question that needs to be asked, and it's a yes or no question. So it would be, say, shall we still have our fire hall located at Prentice Park? Yes or no? That would have to be the vote. And then we would have to go back and see if the second site at 902 is suitable, which will cost a bit of
is
coin.
time and money associated
Yeah.
with that. Like,
Yeah.
there is a period whereby you have to prepare the referendum. Or
Correct.
prepare the community for the
Correct,
referendum.
yes, yeah. There's a few legalities and a few steps, similar to the referendum we were getting ready for in October this year. We still had to do a whole heap of jumping through hoops and getting steps across the line in order to have the referendum in the middle of October.
Yeah.
So we'll have to do all of those steps again, if that makes sense. We can look into it further and come back with further options, I guess. What do you think, Acting CAO?
I'll try to do some research as we're sitting here and answer it a bit more fully.
Thank you. Councillor Shoesmith.
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. There's a lot to say here, and I would like to definitely make sure that we've hashed this subject out before we move on. Not sure if it's quite proper outside a committee of the whole to have a wide-ranging discussion, but you know, there's been a lot of good points here. First thing, I missed our 3 readings vote there, just so you guys are aware. I was traveling for medical reasons, or I certainly would have been there. Wasn't the biggest fan of it, but it passed nonetheless. You know, there's this is a confluence of a bunch of things that I don't really like about local government that we have to deal with here. We've got, grants shaping local policy heavily. And, here we are, I always say it that when we go to make a decision, I would like to go to the taxpayer and ask, but the golden rule applies. Here we are, the province is offering a bunch of gold and we have to go to them and ask. And so that sets the tempo and puts us in this position because we're jumping through hoops to chase that money, which, seeing as those are the rules of the game, I'm happy that we play it well, I suppose. But, I don't much like it. Looking at these numbers here, the amount of people who've signed this petition, and I'm aware that the referendum would be about funding and not location, although it would still fail based on location. Looking at these, this would have failed an AAP for sure, and probably a referendum based on these numbers alone. I'm not quite sure. I haven't done the math, as I just got the numbers just now. But, and there's been some really good points. Somebody mentioned that when you're dealing with the city in good faith, that you should expect that we would uphold our agreement. I wasn't a big fan of how this went down. All that being said, there's no motion before us. We have made the motion, and before we proceed, I would like to talk about how this could possibly proceed. If we were to attempt to make the motion to change sites or to go back a few steps in our process, can we? How would that play out? If say I were to motion that we would go back to site consideration, obviously one of those pieces of follow-up would be that 7 million. A bunch of questions come from that. Are there other projects, perhaps with our water system or anything, where we could apply for that 7 million? I don't think that taxpayer minds which thing we throw that savings onto. So yeah, just procedural question. If I were to say motion, and I'm not at the moment, if I were to motion that we go back to site selection or to 902, what would proceed?
Well, I think you've put your finger on a number of things, and that is a whole bunch of research would be required in order to determine what the available options were, including the risk to the $7 million. And would we have, in the granting timeline, the ability to put a revised application through either for a different site? I have my doubts because we wouldn't have a shovel-ready project that we do now, or a different project, which would be like, I don't know that we're prepared to do that. I probably look to staff, and I expect that would take quite a bit of research to understand if we had a project on the shelf ready to go. So that, that's my initial response to your question. I'll look to Mr. Burdett if he has any other comments.
No, that's okay. Yeah, I mean, the most obvious risk would be affecting the level of shovel ready that this project is. We were talking about the environmental, the ESA that would have to be done in 902. Who knows what that would turn up and what that would mean for the budget for this project, or whether it can go there at all. There's room for the current footprint, but we haven't done the geotech work or the environmental service assessment because we've been moving forward with the site as selected. And somebody said when in public participation that the grant's not guaranteed, and they're absolutely right. And but if we walk back from where we are now and switch sites, based on my discussions with UBCM, my opinion is that we're walking away from this $7 million, like absolutely 100%. So that's my answer. And in terms of referendum, Councillor Ramadas, I think you can have a referendum on something like this, but we would not be able to have it before September 12th because you have to hire elections officers and you have to run it properly. And we were, as Ms. McElwee said, we were putting in lots of steps in order to have that by October. So to have it before September would be tough. And then, to get, and I should say that my lens on all my answers is this grant opportunity. So I've just, Oh, yeah, and then there's, thank you. There was a question about other projects. We did meet internally and reviewed all our big projects. There's the slope over there, CNL, thank you. And then water treatment facility. And those other projects are all just so early. We don't have anything shovel ready to apply for. And so Fire Hall, that's just the way it was timed. This is a clear winner for the project for this grant. So I can't say with confidence that any other project would be successful at this point in time for that application.
Thank you, Mr. Burdett. Councillor Artie Kelly?
Thanks, Your Worship. A couple of things. Did we not apply for a grant for CNL in 2018? So there might be a package of documents that we could look at that we applied for in 2018, and I believe we're not successful. I also believe that there's something called an alternative approval process where the community can write in, and as a certain percentage in favor or against triggers whether or not something goes forward. So is that something also that could be a possibility? I believe that's what Kelowna did for their fire hall.
Thanks, Councillor Artie Kelly. I'll let Ms. Weir speak to CNL, but alternative approval, we had looked at that as an alternative to a referendum. But because we had been saying all along that we were doing a referendum, that was kind of quickly discarded as an option. We were always going forward with a referendum until, as I said, 5-6 weeks ago.
Do we know the particulars of an alternative approval process in terms of timeline?
Not off the top of my head. I can add that to, I'm still researching the referendum question on non-borrowing related matters. But
thank you, Mr. Burnett. Ms. Weir?
To answer the question about whether we have other shovel-ready projects, we do have a few shovel-ready projects, 2 of which are significantly smaller. So we have the lift stations that we applied for, the 10th Avenue lift station and Riverside lift station, which were, totaling about $2 million each. I can't remember the exact number, but significantly smaller projects that have grant applications in and are far enough along the line to do another one. The CNL right away, it is far enough along in the design to be considered shovel ready. It's just more complex because of the land securing to install the mains along there. And as well, the funding for this grant, the SPF, requires you to show that you have the other funds available to you. So the problem with applying for a different project by September 12th would be we would need the loan authorization bylaw showing that we have the rest of the funds to do that project, which at this point in time for the CNL would be, I'm not sure whether that would be possible. It depends on your council meeting schedule.
Thank you, Ms. Weir. Other questions, comments for Mr. Burdett specifically? Mr. Burdett.
About the referendum, there is a referendum act. But I'm sorry, this might not answer. It says the Lieutenant Governor in Council, which I don't think means municipal council, may initiate a referendum on any matter of public interest or concern. So that's all I was able to find in terms of whether you can have one or not. But I still need to research what exactly Lieutenant Governor.
Well, we won't task you with researching that this evening, but we are discussing Fire Hall again on September 9th. So I would encourage everyone who's interested to come back and either both participate and listen to that conversation. Other questions or comments? Mr. Burdett.
Alternative approval, it also takes time to set up. You would take ballpark 3 or 4 months to get the person who has the license to do that hired and scheduled. And
does that also require an elections officer then? It does.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Other questions or comments from council? Seeing none, we will receive this correspondence. Sorry, Councillor Schuzma.
Sorry, Mayor Milligan. I'm just considering making a motion to move that, knowing how it will go. Just to put it, we'll have this discussion again and again and again as we keep going. So just give me a second here. could I make a motion that we relocate this to 902? Understand.
You can move. Is there a seconder? Councillor Audie Kelly. Discussion, council. Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. I'm not prepared to vote on that tonight. You know, there are far too many questions around costs specifically. Timelines are also a question that I think we would be doing the community a disservice, putting at risk the funding and the funds spent making a decision tonight. But I think certainly once we've got more information about what that might cost and what that might look like, that would be appropriate. But to just arbitrarily make a change of location now without understanding the true cost to the community goes against our fiduciary duty.
I tend to agree with that thinking, not least because if we miss this funding window, the additional $7 million is on the taxpayers of the city of Fernie. And that would be a very unfortunate outcome. And I'm not trying to draw a line of comparison between Prentice Park and $7 million. I am just saying we need to go into this with our eyes wide open. And I'm wondering if Councillor Shoesmith, you consider tabling that motion until September 9th.
Councillor Hamilton has a fairly good point. If he'd be more comfortable discussing that motion and voting on it with a pertinent report, I would consider that. Although I would say that I wouldn't want to hazard the continuing work that we're doing, and I would want to hash this out and have it done sooner rather than later, rip the scab off, so to say. I think it's probably the wrong turn of phrase. Just peel the Band-Aid off, that's the one. But
I'm sorry to interrupt, if I may, there's nothing prevents us from calling a special meeting between now and September 9th to discuss this issue specifically.
Thanks. If that's the case, just so we don't hastily make a earth-shattering decision here, I would be happy to table that motion until we receive a report about the effects and how that will play out for us. Making it clear that I'm not pushing for us to stop any and all work that's happening currently. I mean, we don't want to waste our time and money.
Understood. Councillor Audie Kelly.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'm a little bit concerned about leaving it to September 9th. I think your suggestion about an earlier special meeting is a good one. Because I think one thing that we are all in agreement on is that we do need a fire hall. So we don't want to kibosh that process. So I would be willing to continue to support Councillor Shoesmith's motion. But if we could make the more timely than September 9th, because the grant has to be September 12th, and that is not a sufficient time for staff.
Understood. Okay. Councillor McIsaac.
Thank you, Worship. The one concern that I have right now about the timing on this is when we went through this process 18 months ago, we had significant feedback from the people who had concerns about 902 as well. They're not represented here tonight.
No.
In fact, I'm sure they'd be terrified to be in this room based on the responses that have happened so far. So without being given the same opportunity for them to deliver their feedback again, that has happened here, I'm very reluctant to move forward. We heard feedback from both groups before and went through the pros and cons and made a decision. Now we've heard from another group that wasn't happy. Will we change our mind again if we
go to 902 and the 90 people that were concerned about 902 come forward about across from their neighborhood, the loss of business expansion, et cetera, et cetera. So how many times will we go back and forth?
I'm
So-
gonna have to ask you guys, I'm sorry. This is as difficult as it looks, and I would very much appreciate if you didn't heckle. So thank you.
Yeah,
Please
so,
continue.
I mean, I'm listening to the people here. This is certainly there are no good choices here. This is the least worst right now, but I certainly would not be comfortable moving forward without having heard from the people who came to us before to speak about against 902. So if we can incorporate that somehow into our process here, if we're going to revisit this, then I'm fine with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Ramirez?
Thanks, Your Worship. I have a question for Councillor Shoesmith, if you may, Your Worship. Would he be willing to actually consider a location that is neither Prentice nor 902? And the reason I'm saying this is for myself, right from a year and a half ago, I've also been not far putting this fire hall in the downtown location. In my view, the best use case for fire hall for downtown location is for commercial activities and economic activities. That needs to be the hub of the community where we have high density commercial retail activities going on. So, and I like where Councillor Shoesmith is going with this. It's just that, is there an option for you to consider taking Prentice out of this and keep it general in such a way that we have enough time to assess what work needs to be done as an alternative location without kiboshing the current process that is going on to get that $7 million grant funding?
Councilor Shoesmith?
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. Thank you, Councillor Ramirez. Actually, I'm glad you brought that forward. In all candor, I hadn't planned on voting for either of the locations when it came before us before. I felt we should adjust our requirements or expectations or consider other options at the time. We kind of want to have our cake and eat it too, where we have the ability to make the decisions with a bunch of fulsome information. And at the same time, we don't want to stop up this process. I really despise the position I'm in right now, where we have $7 million gun to the head saying, make this decision, just do it. And you know what, to some extent, I guess there's value in being forced to it. This has been a thing that's been a big issue in the town for what, 20, 30, some decades?
46 years.
Yes. I would be happy to consider any other site or to send it back there. But as far as I can see, that would involve going back about a year and a half in our process and completely sink the chance on getting this grant. And for the record, I despise that grant chasing drives our policy. It's the game we have to play because that's the way the rules are, but it bothers me to no end. Yeah, I'd be happy to amend it, but I just don't see where else it could get us. Go ahead.
Further?
Just to be clear to everyone here at the council table, we made this decision before the community center went out, right? So we did not have that information at that point in time. And then we progressed through our fire hall project. Now we have an opportunity to go back and see if that site actually works or not. So if this body is about thinking outside the box and coming up with unique solutions, I think we should be thinking about community center as well.
Yeah, I would just look to Ms. Weir. I think that site was evaluated in terms of size and I don't believe it met the criteria.
I'd have to pull up the details of the report. It was evaluated. I believe it involved cutting into the curling rink site to get sufficient size, like
Yeah.
the site as existed was insufficient size. So
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Weir. Did you have further to your comment, Councillor Schussman?
I was wondering if that cut into the curling rink itself or just the asphalt that is part of that lot.
No, the actual structure.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. I think my question has been answered. I was just going to say, are we suggesting it's not going back 1.5 years, it's probably going back more like 3 or 4 years and going through an entire site selection process again that we've done twice while I've been a councillor.
Thank you, Councillor Ramirez.
That's my point here, Your Worship. If we had a referendum that is disconnected with the borrowing mechanism here, this would solve everything. People would have a chance to vote on whether they like it or not, right? And then we move on with our lives. If community says no, we don't do it. If the community says yes, we do it. So that's where I was getting at here. And sorry, CFO.
Mr. Burdick?
Thanks, Mayor Milligan. Just a few points I would like to clarify. I need to correct something I said about alternate approval earlier. It's not run by a chief election officer. It's run by the corporate officer. But the absolute minimum time that it can be done in, according to this BC guide here, is 32 days. It needs to be open for 30 days for people to submit submissions. So if we were to start it tomorrow, which we're not prepared to do, it would be past the September 12th deadline anyway. The other point I just need to make, and I want to preface this by saying I have no personal opinion whatsoever on the site, but we don't have a design for 902 at the moment. That would need to be done. And so that impacts how risky the grantors view our project, which again is not guaranteed either way. And then I need to just touch on the timing of this borrowing bylaw. I understand Councillor Shoesmith's point about that it feels like a $7 million gun to the head, but I just want to point out that the timing of that borrowing bylaw wasn't impacted at all by this grant opening. It was always scheduled for that meeting last month. So that hasn't been accelerated. The only thing that's changed is the need to hold a referendum, but that bylaw was always scheduled for 3 readings at that meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Audrey Kelly?
Thanks, Your Worship. I just wanted to clarify. Basically, we chose to not have a referendum on July 15th. And did I hear correctly that it would take 3 to 4 months to set up a referendum? So were we partway down the path of setting it up? Because if we were going to have it in October, the middle of July, 3 to 4 months doesn't really line up with October.
Thanks, Councillor Audrey Kelly. That's a good question. We had picked October mainly because that's when the chief elections officer was available and we wanted to have the money in place for spring construction. So then working backwards from the province's timeline and how long it takes them to review and approve the borrowing bylaw, and then bring it back to council for adoption. And then there's the 1 month quashing period. So all of that was looking to be like 3 or 4 months, which is why that bylaw was scheduled for a July meeting to leave us enough time to have that referendum in October.
Further?
Thanks, Your Worship. So just to clarify for folks, because I also misunderstood the quashing period, when would a quashing period start?
Immediately after adoption. And it would be 1 month. And the intent of that is for someone to challenge the legality of the bylaw.
Thank you, Mr. Burnett. Yes.
Thanks, Mayor Milligan. Something Councillor Ramada said I wanted to respond to, but it slipped my mind. Sorry, I'll come back to it.
Okay. Any other comments from council? I do wonder though, given the outstanding questions, Councillor Shoesmith's tabled motion, do you require, and look to our corporate officer maybe, do you require a resolution to set up a special meeting, given enough time to provide the research and not impact current work on the fire hall?
Thanks, Mayor Mulligan. I think I would prefer a resolution. Maybe specifically the date.
Okay.
If we wanted to,
Well, and that's why I said reference the work required, because I don't want to presume it's next week, for example. If that is an adequate time to do the research required to answer the outstanding questions.
maybe if it's okay, then I would ask for just a 3-minute recess to talk to Ms. Weir, who's
Absolutely.
leading
Yeah.
most of this work.
Please. Thank you. Ms. Rhodes? Are we ready, Ms. Rhodes? Counselor Shoesmith? Welcome back. Mr. Burdett?
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. So we would like to clarify exactly what sort of information council would like to see, including what date the meeting should be. And in terms of information, and I apologize, I've got a few things written here. Some things that we think council has been discussing tonight is the cost and timeline of environmental site assessment, geotech report, revising design for 902, the impact on what we think our grant likelihood would be. Grant requires a detailed design, part of which includes our geotech assessment, all of which would be submitted on September 12th for Prentice Park, which we do not have for 902. We could probably submit it on 902 with a Class D estimate. At the moment, we're at a Class B estimate for Prentice Park. So that increases the risk, obviously, and it also increases the unknown total project budget. Having said that, then what the impact on property tax would be. There's a few options that's been discussed tonight that would immediately disqualify us from the grant, in my opinion, one of which would be holding a referendum in October. If we didn't decide on the site before September 12th, then we can't submit a design for a site for a grant, for example. So, and we've discussed the impact on property tax in previous meetings. The goal with this funding strategy is to increase taxes by, sorry, I don't have my sheet, but I think it was roughly 2% to pay for this loan. If we walk away from the 7 million or don't get it, the property tax increase will be 6% just to pay for this loan alone for the next 30 years. And then I've touched on cost of budget for revised site, the due diligence and environmental site assessment. I mean, we can say that would roughly be $80,000 right now to do at 902, but wouldn't be able to do it in time for September 12th to get it to a Class B estimate. So those are some of the notes I've written down just in terms of what I think I've been hearing council say they would like to see at a special meeting. Is that?
Yeah, I looked to other councillors to add anything that they think we may have missed. But I think having that encapsulated in one report would likely be helpful in terms of this is the effort and this is what it will cost. Mr. Burdett.
Another thing, are we just limiting it to Prentice Park and 902? There's discussion on other sites. The opinion is that any other site other than those two brings us back to square one completely for the project.
I think so, yeah.
And then also we thought it might be worth reminding council of the process that went into selecting the site, which was done by a professional consultant that picks sites for a living.
Yeah, I think that would also be helpful. Other? Councillor Hamlin?
The other thing that I would like to see in that report is what the current timeframe is for our temporary use permit at the operations facility. And if any delay is going to then force or require upgrades to that facility to make it post-disaster suitable, and what price tag we might be looking at for that.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I think that's an important consideration. Councillor McIsaac.
Thank you, Worship. Sorry, I'm just kind of formulating this as a discussion Councillor Ramadas and I were having. I think what I'm curious, assuming that all of the moving forward with the financials and so on, and with the preparing for the grant and everything, how dependent on the site is the grant application? And I guess what I'm looking for, what are the specific pieces in there that ensure that are going to decide whether or not we're actually prepared to apply for the grant? So I mean, I do understand that some building design, for example, the detailed design, but I think I just heard from the CFO that, you know, the class of estimate might be D or C or B, or we're not exactly sure which level is going to be required as far as moving forward to the grant application. So if there was an opportunity there for a reduced class of estimate, but still be able to move forward safely and with confidence on the grant, I'd be curious to know if that's possible, or if that would be too much of an impediment.
I can answer that one now, Councillor McIsaac. The grant application does ask what class your project's at, and it's got lists for A, B, C, D. So the point I was making is that if it's 902, it would be D, and therefore, you know, and then the due diligence on the site might result in anything that could increase the project by a lot, and then, you know, all of a sudden our borrowing bylaw doesn't allow us to borrow enough, and so you have to figure out how to pay for the rest of it at that point. So it's just more risky, and people reviewing the grant, based on my conversations with them, will take that into consideration when deciding whether to award.
Thank you.
Councillor Artie Kelly.
Thanks, Your Worship. Actually, CFO partly answered my question. What does that do to our current borrowing bylaw? Is it fixed to the site, or it just the number, the amount? Because if we had to change the amount, I'm guessing we have to go through the process again and have another inspection?
Thanks, Councillor Artie Kelly. And I will answer that in a bit of a roundabout way. I just want to read the definitions of Class D and B for everyone's benefit. Class D estimate is plus or minus 50%. Preliminary estimate, which due to little or no site information indicates the approximate magnitude of costs of the proposed project based on the client's broad requirements. And then Class B estimate is plus or minus 15 to 25%, and an estimate prepared after site investigations and studies have been completed and the major systems defined. It is based on a project brief and preliminary design. So then your question, could you please rephrase? Sorry.
Sorry, CFO, like we have a 3-reading inspected borrowing bylaw for 12 million. I'm assuming that could change. Sorry, that was lamely phrased, but.
That's correct. Yeah, the borrowing bylaw is for 12 million, and it's not tied to site, but it is based on Class B estimate, which includes a contingency of plus or minus 15%. So to then move to a Class D project, you know, that could vary by as much as 50%. So just extra risk.
So sorry, go ahead, Councillor Ramirez.
Thanks, Your Worship. I had a completely different train of thought if you wanted to ask something related to what.
No.
Okay, all right. CFO, sometimes things are super clear in my head, but what I have communicated may come across as something complicated. Let me rephrase what I'm trying to say with my earlier comment about referendum. All I'm saying is, let's just pretend there is nothing to do with the financial mechanisms, none of that. Let's just set it aside. Forget about the timelines, forget about the dates, all of those things. What I'm saying is, are there tools available for us wherein we just go in front of the community with a referendum that says, do you want a fire hall situated at Prentice Park? Yes or no? What we do with the outcome of the referendum we'll decide later. But could we actually do that disconnected with this entire funding mechanisms, ins and outs of municipal finance authority, all of those things? Let's just set it aside. Just referendum, clear, simple referendum asking people, do you want it on Prentice Park or not?
Based on my initial research tonight, it seems like you can, but I would like to say that I may have to correct myself later. after doing a little more deeper dive into that.
Which should likely be included in the summary report. And I guess the question to you, Mr. Bird, is given all that and all those, is a week's time, so attaching a special meeting to next week's committee of the whole, is that a reasonable time frame? I can't read your expression.
Yep, week's time is,
Okay.
I don't know if reasonable is the word I would use, but possible.
Possible, then, yeah. Okay, that's an important clarification. Yes, thank you. Yeah. I would look then to council for somebody to move a resolution for a special meeting that includes a summary report for, what's the date? I'm sorry, next week, 19th, appended to our committee of the whole. Mr. Burnett.
I just would like also to flag for council that Ms. Weir and Ms. Morgan have scheduled vacation for next week and the week after, which is, you know, it's okay. I mean, I can do my best to answer questions, but I just wanted to let you know.
And presumably they're able to provide some backup. Thank you. Okay, thanks. That is an important piece of information. Councillor Shoesmith, we have a seconder. Councillor Ramadas, any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Nixon is opposed. No, if we've agreed to table it, it doesn't require a resolution. It's tabled until such time as we have that special meeting. Councillor Shoesmith.
A thought occurs, just to save everybody the time and heartache if it's going to go a certain way or not. If somebody were to move that we proceed with that site and then we voted for or against, I mean, if it was going to come out that we were going to be before anyway, I mean, that would save this week of staff running around and hazarding our grant. I wouldn't, but I was just thinking about it.
No, I think based on the feedback we received tonight and all the conversation we've had today, I think we're better positioned and we owe it in terms of due diligence to our community to do this extra bit of research and discuss it at length when we have the opportunity. Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Your Worship. You know, it's not an easy thing to vote against something like that. And you know, you think about it, I can see how this can has been kicked down the road for 46 years. And although I would have preferred a new municipal growth framework to give us more money, the grant is the way out of this. The grant it's not guaranteed. Yes, life isn't guaranteed either. You know, and I'm happy that we approved for the full amount by the province. I'm optimistic about the $7 million. If we don't get it, we still have a fire hall in the right spot, right? I'm proud to be part of a council that has stopped kicking this can down the road. And now we've done that again. And I'm disappointed.
Please. I don't want to have to clear the room. Thank you. Councillor Audie Kelly.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yep, point of order. Please be respectful. I do just want to make one final comment. We talk about having kicked the can down the road for 46 years, but I'd like to point out that we had a functioning fire department with excellent care from our firemen for all of that time. Yes, that building was not ideal, but often things are repurposed in life. For example, the current library, which is a beautiful library, would anyone dispute that it was also an awesome post office? Because it was. It was also City Hall. So yes, we did repurpose a building for our fire hall and it wasn't ideal, but I feel that we denigrate the fine work that our fire department did out of that building, and I don't think that's fair. I think generations of firefighters, including Chief Morgan, did an excellent job working out of that building, and it bothers me when we talk about it as if it was subpar. Our fire protection was excellent, and I don't like the notion that it was subpar because the building wasn't ideal. Those guys made it work, and they did a darn good job of making it work. So I'm sorry for being emotional about that, but I had to point that out.
Well, I don't think anybody in this discussion, no one has denigrated the work of our firefighters. We have focused on their needs and the needs of this community. And if people are interpreting that way, that's incredibly unfortunate because that was never anybody's intention. I have the utmost respect for our firefighters. I've had personal experience when a family member had an issue and they were there in less than 2 minutes and they were probably 10 minutes ahead of the ambulance. It was, I'll never forget it, quite frankly. I just think this community can do better. And a repurposed tire shop, it was a functional facility. It was the wrong facility. It was the wrong facility for a long time. And our goal here is to meet the needs of this community. And it, in no way, shape, or form, if somebody's either intentionally or unintentionally misinterpreted that, that is incredibly unfortunate. And because I can look across the room at Chief Morgan and I know he knows when I suggest this has been a permanent decision has been avoided for 46 years, that's the truth. We don't have to look very far in this community to look at facilities that have just been let go and run down to failure, right? And unfortunately, this council is reaping the benefits of that. We had to close a community center. Another incredibly unpopular decision. Do you think we wanted to do that? Not at all. Not at all. That was what happens. It's a euphemism. Sure, we kick the can down the road. That's what happens when people don't pay attention to the facilities that they have. When consistently they're afraid to spend money because money means raising taxes. That's where we end up. Now we're faced with a decision, and we've as our acting CAO and our CFO has pointed out, a confluence of events that potentially allows us to build a fully functional fire hall for this community for $3.6 million. Nobody does that. Nobody does that. And here we are. And I very much appreciate all the feedback we've received this evening. I am entirely sympathetic to the loss of green space, to the loss of the park. Don't think I'm not aware. I played on that when I was a kid. Actually, they mostly made us play in, I was telling Anthony this, they mostly made us play in West Fernie in that scrubby old field behind where the turbo is. So it was a real joy to play at that field. I get that. And I get too that folks want a voice. But again, through a confluence of events, we find ourselves where we choose to have a referendum. We're giving away $7 million. I get that it's not guaranteed. I get it. But if we choose not to, we're going to make a whole bunch of people unhappy. I would invite every one of you to run for these seats next year, because these are the decisions you'll be faced with. And if you don't have the courage to make difficult decisions, don't even consider it. Because now these are the issues you're going to be faced with again and again and again. We've got a huge bill pending for our wastewater treatment facility. We've got a huge bill pending for our freshwater supply because nobody saw the need to raise taxes and spend money on these things. So it falls to us. And none of this is easy. And that's why, thank you, Councillor Audie Kelly. Be respectful. Because this is not an easy chair to sit in. And I would ask every one of you to give it a go if you think it is. Thank you. And thank you for your time this evening. And I thank you for your perspectives. This has been very valuable. So we have voted. That is it for the conversation this evening of the fire hall. There will be a meeting, a special meeting advertised for next Tuesday. We're going to take a 10-minute recess. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Rose. Welcome back. Thank you, everybody. Sorry, Officer Kramer, we're still in correspondence, but I wanted to look at, and maybe council can help me understand this, LRCB invitation to engage regarding cannabis sales at events. Like, do we respond to that? Historically, I know we've had LRCB requests about specific businesses locally, but I don't know. Thoughts, Councillor Ramirez?
As far as I am concerned, Your Worship, I was just pleased that we still have the authority to, figure out if of the location and those kind of things. That's the only thing that I'm really worried about. Rest of the things is beyond my pay grade, so I'm going to ignore that.
One of the questions was location, like was distance between. But there isn't a policy on that, and they're asking, should there be a policy? Councillor Ardia Kelly, thoughts?
Thanks, Your Worship. For me, I would think they would want to hear from people that operate events. Like besides the location, I was just thinking about Wapiti this weekend and how that would have worked and how they would have managed it and all those types of things. Like where, when there's kids, I don't know, it seems pretty complex. I'm with Councillor Ramadas. I think that's above my pay grade.
Councillor McIsaac, as someone who runs an event.
Very reluctantly putting my finger up here. Actually, they are reaching out to organizations. So I also participate in the BC Music Festival Collective. That represents a couple hundred events around the province. And it's under my understanding that the EDs and one of the directors is meeting with the province tomorrow as well to discuss it. So they're asking broadly across the spectrum. I think what they're trying to do here is doing much like when they, have reached out to municipalities and local government when they were changing things like the liquor regulations, and they're looking for feedback. I don't think we should assume that we have any additional authority beyond what we already have. I don't think they're looking for that. It's much more a case of what is our comfort level.
Yeah.
I can tell you that discussions at that table have focused on things like cannabis drinks and edibles as opposed to the smoking cannabis. And I think that for a large part because smoking cannabis at events falls under the same rule as smoking cigarettes, which is essentially it's banned for pretty much every event. So that's the part that they're talking about. Now, not talking about from that perspective, but with my own personal hat on, cannabis is legal. So, I know all of us have grown up with it most of our lives being illegal and treating it as a illicit substance, but the fact is it's illegal. It's beer with a different name right now. From my perspective, I think that if we're going to respond to the province about this, is that what we probably would like to see is consistency, which is how you regulate alcohol within communities, within events and so on is probably exactly how we'd like to see them regulate cannabis consumption as well. If it's legal, it's legal. If it's not legal, say so, and then we'll stop doing that.
Fair comment.
Yeah.
Councillor Smith.
Yeah, as a guy who's familiar with running a pretty decent sized event as well myself, good job at Wapiti, by the way. I don't know. I think, yeah, it's kind of a bit above our pay grade. I mean, I just don't see marijuana being that big a deal at a derby. It's just doesn't seem like that kind of event,
More of a PBR event.
Yeah. I mean, the Lavalamp convention or something. But I mean, I'm kind of less as fair. I mean, like, what problem are we aiming to solve? It seems like most events police it fairly well to their taste. I'd imagine somewhere out there's one that smells like a bunch of skunks and everybody's happy. But it seems fairly well policed as is. I don't really feel up to filling that thing out.
Councillor McIsaac.
Thank you, Worship. Just to quickly respond to that, the reason they're asking is because currently
you cannot provide consumable cannabis at events. So you can't buy drinks that contain cannabis or gummy bears or whatever edibles and so on that might contain them. Those are not legally for sale outside of prescribed venues like our existing cannabis stores and so on. So I think that's what they're asking is much like, and there was a change to this a number of years ago when they started to allow, previously it was not allowed to serve hard alcohol at events, and then they allowed it through the Farmers Market Act. So you could bring in like a tasting sample, farmers market type thing for exposure to local distilleries and things like that. So that was a sort of a subtle change that was made. And I think they're kind of looking at the same thing as how do we potentially incorporate this thing that is currently not allowed and recognize that it's legal? How do we bring it in without alienating people or upsetting the local retailers, those types of things. So, yeah.
Other comments, Councillor Nixon?
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I think there was a lot of questions about it because I'm in charge of the beverage garden at the music festival. And there was a lot of questions from our organizing committee about bringing in edibles and stuff like that as well. And I did quite a bit of research about 2 months ago, and it wasn't top of mind, and I didn't have time to look at it again today. But I think the big concern from an event organizer's side is that people are supposedly drinking less, right? And right now they can bring in edibles up to 200 or something like that. So then it does take away from the sales that we have for our, wine and cider and beer. So, and that's what really helps the festival pay for artists and all the porta potties and all that kind of stuff, right? So I think that's the biggest, that would be the biggest concern. Like from our point of view, does the music festival want to sell internal gummies? Do we want to police the gummies that are coming in or the cannabis products that are coming in? And it's, I don't know. I would think leaving it up to the BC Music Collective would be an appropriate way to go. So,
Okay, so
and then we'll just abide by what the government says anyway.
Yeah, that's fair.
So
we'll
thank you.
just receive this and not develop a formal response. Is that okay? Thank you. With that, sorry, Officer Kramer, back to you.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. Appears that my topic presentation is somewhat mundane. I've lost the crowd. So the purpose of my presentation here is to give a third reading to the proposed amendment to the business licensing and regulation bylaw to increase the annual short-term rental business license fees from $100 to $700 for a condo hotel and $500 for a primary residence. My report is contained on page 9 of our agenda. And we've also done a public consultation portion, which has been completed, and the response has been compiled and given to council for the perusal. And so we have a couple of options here. Option 1 is that the business licensing regulation bylaw number 2028-2006 amendment bylaw number 2529-2025 be given third reading. Or option number 2, that council reconsider the fees set out in the proposed bylaw and move to amend the bylaw accordingly before giving third reading. A number of responses were in consideration of cost recovery. If you will note that my original presentation was based solely on municipality comparisons. That was because we were the lowest with the comparative municipalities, resort communities. And so we made a presentation and a proposal to increase our fees to be in line with those municipalities as well. The other piece of the puzzle that has been put forward is the Provincial Short-Term Rental Accommodation Act, which has now added a cost, but it's a cost across the province. So every municipality has to pay that. That's a $100 fee for a primary residence STR and $450 for a condo hotel. I will advise council, we have not opted into the provincial principal residence regulations. We are exempt at this point. And at this point in time, we have no recommendation to do so. Our principal residence definition is more stringent than a province. And I can let council know that we are responsible for enforcing our bylaws, myself and Officer Leach. And included in my report is a cost recovery portion that council had asked for to the tune of just over $65,000 a year. So I will try to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you, Officer Kramer. It's a very comprehensive report. Question, Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mine's a question's a little bit pedantic. I'm just wondering if I'm doing math wrong or if there's a small summation error on page 12. Just under the cost estimates, there's a statement that says this illustrates that for this first year, the STR is licensed all the above costs except for the STR license cost supply. This means the initial direct cost per STR of the municipality is $736.36. But when I look at the two tables of 471.11 and 274.85, that doesn't equal 736.36. So I'm just wondering if I misunderstood something or if there's just a small error.
I apologize, Councillor Hamilton. You're saying these two tables for
Yes.
the cost recovery?
Yeah, the 471.11 is the total of one table.
Yeah, so the
And-
cost estimate for the initial processing of the STR application is $471.11.
Yeah,
These are just estimates. I can let council know because the actual cost depends on the complexity of the STR application, because we have some that have open building permits that need to be closed prior to any type of business license being issued. The building officials then have to work with these individuals to get that to closure, and then it comes back to me. So some are pretty straightforward, but some are more complex. And this is just a bare bones estimate.
I totally appreciate that. My question is the total 471.11 plus the cost estimate for ongoing annual tasks is 274.85. And in your summary, in the next paragraph, you say the total is 736 to start.
Yes, so I can advise that these
Yeah.
estimates were done by Officer Leach and Derek Simeone, as I was on holidays at this point in time. So the $471 time plus the $274.85 comes to around $745, not $736.36.
So it is just a typographical
you
error.
are
Thank
right.
you. That
Yeah.
was all I was just wanting to make sure that I wasn't missing something.
And thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions or comments? Councillor McIsaac, thank you.
Thank you, Worship. Actually, my question is in the paragraph after that, and it was more a curiosity question. So we'll be able to give up the Granicus subscription, which is $10,000 a year. But I noted that now the province is going to require a significant data upload from our bylaw to them. And what is going to be the cost of in time and money for that particular work? And
Thank you very much for your question, Councillor McIsaac. You are correct that the Granicus contract is due to be terminated next year, and we have already been granted access to the provincial registry. And we are actually I am compiling a spreadsheet because there's the province has given us a template that we need to use in order to upload our information here in our database to cross-reference with the provincial registry. There's 30 pieces of information that they have in that particular template. Not all of them are applicable to our current situation, but lots are. And it's going to take that particular template, and the cost associated to it has not been factored into this cost recovery at this point because we don't know exactly what it's going to be.
thank you.
Councillor Ida Kelly?
Thanks, Your Worship. And just to be clear for the public, this 745 and change didn't include the Granicus contract fee.
No.
Yeah, good.
And just for my own clarity tonight, Officer Kramer, we are giving it third reading, but it will not come back until the entire business license bylaw has been revisited. Is that right? It will come back as part of that bylaw?
Thank you, Your Worship. That is not what I believe is going to occur.
Okay.
The actual amendment bylaw, if we give third reading, then adoption, it would only be with the STR fees.
Okay.
And the second portion of your question, I will defer to Mr. Burdette.
Mr. Burdett?
Thanks, Mayor Milligan. Yeah, just in terms of timing of the rest of the bylaw, we've actually have a open house next Wednesday.
Yeah.
In tandem with the chamber to talk about the other fees, and then there'll be a report to council in September. I mean, originally we were trying to get this portion of the bylaw adopted earlier, to try and catch new people coming onto the system this year. But given that it's so late, we may or may not amend the bylaw so that it's all done by the end of the year. But I think it's scheduled to be adopted as it is. And I apologize if I said that wrong earlier to you.
Oh, no. I was just curious. I'm perfectly comfortable with that. I was just trying to understand the context in relation to that, the business fee.
So we may be adopting this bylaw twice in the same year for different reasons.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Ramirez.
I'd like to move, Your Worship.
So we are moving option 1, the business licensing and regulation bylaw as written, be given third reading. Seconded by Councillor McIsaac. Any further discussion? Councillor Smith.
Thanks, Mayor Milligan. I'll probably be voting in favor of this. I would just like to point out that, we are shooting for a cost recovery and then it's a bit higher than that. But in the meeting where we talked about it earlier, I was asked, why those numbers? Why exactly that? And I've been thinking a bunch about that because I didn't have a really great answer at the time. Part of it's what you're selling. And another part of it is that there's a lot of costs that don't fall under this report or under our bylaws wheelhouse, such as, all of our pipes are over capacity and we need a bigger sewer plant and we need more traffic stuff. That's all driven by the sheer amount of tourism, and that's tax borne by the average taxpayer, which most of them aren't involved in tourism. Some of them are certainly, but not all of them. And so I just wanted to say that as a response to the many emails and correspondence we've received. And then to point out that over time, economically, people with jobs will wind up being in competition for housing to rent. And in some places where that tension has existed, the people with jobs have lost, where you've got towns that wind up just turning into basically giant glorified hotels. Like, Venice, almost nobody lives in Venice. If you own property in Venice, you can't justify living there. You move out of town and rent your house. So I also feel that the increase from 100 to 500 for small operators, catches some people in a net where they might rent it once a year. That's the sticky thing with laws. That's not that much of a difference on the scale of costs here when you can rent a place for $1,000 pretty easily for a weekend. So thank you.
Thank you. With that, I will call the vote. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you, Officer Kramer. Well done.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Item 11.1, a report from our Acting Director, Corporate Services, Associate Member Liability Insurance Coverage. And sorry, ladies, I know it's a long evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This report is presented to Council to consider approving associate member insurance coverage for both the Fernie Trails Alliance as well as the Fernie's Pet Society under the Municipal Insurance Association of BC, or MIABC, with their program to help fulfill our contractual obligation to provide liability insurance for the FTA in connection with the mountain bike dirt jump park operations, as well as the Fernie Pet Society in connection to the Fernie dog park operations. Just a bit of background, we had entered in 2022 into a service provider agreement with the Fernie Pet Society to operate and maintain the Fernie Dog Park, as well as in 2022, we entered into a service provider agreement with the FTA, the Fernie Trails Alliance, for the operation and maintenance of the Dirt Jump Bike Park. These two agreements included a requirement for the city to provide liability insurance coverage for the FTA as well as the FPS in performing those services. Recently, under a legal and insurer review, it determined that providing an additionally insured certificate only provides coverage for vicarious liability arising from city's actions and does not cover their direct negligence.
Sorry, their direct negligence, meaning the parties, or our negligence?
The parties providing the service on our
Thank you.
behalf. Yeah, so we sought legal counsel as well as many consultations with the MIABC, who does provide the insurance. And the city does retain greater liability exposure and may face indemnity claims in the event of an accident. But MIABC confirmed that simply having an additional insured certificate does not meet the requirements of our service provider agreement. And in order to fulfill our contractual obligations and ensure there's appropriate coverage, both the Fernie Trails Alliance as well as the Fernie Pet Society must be added as associate members. Adding them as associate members provide direct liability coverage for their operations, both at the Dirt Jump Bike Park as well as Fernie Dog Park. And then there is an additional annual premium of $1,100 total to add both members. It doesn't transfer the risk away from the city. It could still impact our claims experience and future premiums in the event of a claim. But the intent of naming them as associate members is to provide coverage to service providers who step into the shoes of local governments to provide services to the community who are unable to obtain the required insurance independently. So we do require, in order to name them an associate member with MIABC, we do require a council resolution. It's required, as well as then, as we wrote the resolutions, to keep the two entities separate, and then in order to execute it accordingly. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Ramdas and then Councillor McKenzie.
Thanks, Your Worship. I just had two questions. Is this should it have come to a regular council meeting or should it have been in a council of the whole? Would be my first question for this one. The reason I'm asking about this is I have a lot of questions about the service agreement with FTA and the Pet Society itself. That was written in 2022, right? When is it coming due again?
I would have to verify when
Yeah.
for each agreement.
2027, 5 years, yeah. It's kind of odd that this thing came here because we are now forced to, I know it's a small premium that we are going to be paying, but I just have this value-based conflict in my head that I'm not able to reconcile here. And if people are interested why I'm thinking this way, I'm happy to talk about it, but it'll take a lot of time.
Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to ask a couple questions. I'm going to lead with the fact that none of my questions are related to the quality of the organizations that we are working with. Fernie Pets and the Dirt Jump people, FTA, do fabulous work. This has nothing to do with questioning their integrity or ability or anything like that. My first question is the requirement for the partnership change a direct result of the wording in our service provider agreement? And should the service provider agreement be revisited to determine whether or not the current wording could be different and not require this particular change and leave them with a third-party named insurer, et cetera, and to continue on in their current situation? Is it just because of chosen language in our agreement, and could that be changed?
Yes, right now we are not fulfilling our contractual obligations in those current agreements.
Right. So, and I understand that we have those agreements for a while, so that's not going to happen before then, but should we add this to our Apple reminder list to reconsider? And not that we should necessarily change it. I just think we should either continue on with it or change it in the full light of day after having a discussion about what the implications are of that. And then, so this particular line is what gave me the heebie-jeebies. And it was the claims arising under this coverage may impact the city's future premiums, claims experience rating, and result in deductible cost if applicable. That, I know that's insurance speak, but that's daunting. Only because now we, again, not a reflection on those groups, but now we are putting the future finances of the city with regards to our insurance costs potentially in the hands of two groups that we are not in control of. So I guess what I'm saying is there something about the relationship that could potentially change to help mitigate some of that risk, as in to be hired as contractors? Like I'm absolutely certain that the Pet Society and FTA hold their own liability insurance, for example, that covers their people that volunteer and work and all those types of things. And again, this comes back to the case of how we have structured our agreement with them is what is creating this requirement. I'm wondering, should a relationship change be considered? And I don't know that we should change it. I just want to see what our potential options are that would potentially mitigate the risk to the city while supporting them. So I want to, like, as an just blue skying a little bit, for example, were we to structure a lease for them to take over that space for a period of time, would that change the relationship? And then potentially allow them to have their own insurance and be responsible for that space. So I guess after all those questions, the next question I have to ask, most of those seemed rhetorical, but they were more lead up, which is, at what point do we get to have that discussion? When do we get that opportunity to be able to consider some alternatives to that? And I'd like to be able to consider those alternatives with the view of, we may decide just to keep it the way it is and accept the risk and just carry on, and we're happy, everybody's happy. But when would we have an opportunity to do that? Sorry, that was a very long question.
If I may, I will need to consult as well with the Director of Parks, Facilities and Recreation, who is the main contact and has executed these agreements with both those entities. And for when it would come back to council,
Yeah. And sorry, when do the agreements expire? 2027 for both? Yeah. So are we in terms of meeting I'm sorry, I know there's a couple more questions. Are we better positioned in terms of meeting our legal obligation to make this decision now to ensure we are meeting our legal obligations, which we should as a municipality?
if I may, yes.
And
was
revisit this and the relationships and the contractual relationships specifically. Again, they're both doing a fine job at the point of expiry of the agreements. And I'm thinking aloud here.
If I may, Your Worship,
please.
they expire in July of 2027.
Yeah.
So that would be the appropriate time to revisit the language and the agreements. And right now, both legal counsel and the MIABC, encouraged to name them as associate members for the remaining of the term to meet those contractual obligations, ensure that we have the adequate liability protection, and to help mitigate legal and financial risks.
Understood. Sorry, Mr. Burdett?
Thanks. Just to add, I made a note here for July 27 to talk to CEO when he's back, maybe have a committee report discussing it before the agreement itself comes back. You know, build a little more time in for
Yeah.
discussion.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Councillor Adi Kelly?
Thanks, Your Worship. I was actually wondering, Director, and this might be an unfair question to ask you rather than legal counsel, would we not be able to be named now in any liability circumstance? So yes, it might, like, does it really expose us to more risk? Because if someone got hurt there, could they not already sue the city as well as FDA? Or the dog park? And I'm, again, as Councillor McIsaac pointed out, nothing against either association. I think they do a brilliant work.
If I may, upon the review, we had them named as additionally insured. So that has already been in place since the agreements. But then upon further review, it was the associate members is the key piece where we had the additionally insured certificate for both those entities. So there is some sort of liability coverage, but upon review, it's not meeting our contractual obligations as written.
Further?
Yeah, I just want to be clear that either way, there's risk for the association and the city.
Yeah, I think the question here is the preference of legal counsel and our insurer to meet the legal requirements of the agreement that we've actually signed with them.
Is to name them, yes,
Yeah.
as associate members.
Yeah.
And provide the annual premium.
Yeah,
That's kind of what I was trying to get at. Like, we're exposed. It's
Yeah.
not like we weren't exposed and, you know,
yeah.
we
Yeah, yeah.
need to do this for both our sakes. Is that how I'm?
I think that's fair, yeah. Councillor Smith?
Is anyone else annoyed that, thank you, Mayor Milligan, insurance experts are telling us we need more insurance? I mean, that's kind of, you know, Councillor McIsaac said sort of what I was thinking and put it into a lot better words than I can. He sounded way smarter. I have some misgivings about risk and responsibility, where if, you know, you're taking risk and you're taking on responsibility for something, you generally want some control and say in it. And I have no desire for the city to have any, you know, oversight of either of those groups. As everybody else has said, they're pretty great at what they're doing. Although I'd be happy to, you know, do what's required here tonight, with the caveat that, yeah, when this expires, we have the discussion and hopefully council opts for something a little more arm's length for us. Provided we're going to have that discussion in 2027, or somebody will at this table. I'm happy to, you know,
A fair comment.
carry on with this. Although it does kind of, I'm not quite comfortable with it as a permanent type thing, you know?
Councillor Nixon?
Thank you, Your Worship. So do these two organizations have insurance now? I mean, it says in the report that they are unable to obtain required insurance. So I'm just curious if they have insurance.
Yes, they both are named as additionally insured, and they have those certificates. But where the risk is that we're actually exposed right now, where we would be covering them for their own negligence.
Right.
And then naming as an associate member. Yeah, so as an additionally insured to cover them solely for their liability exposure arising from damages caused by the negligence of their staff. So if you add them as associate members, then you'll meet the named insurance agreements requirements. And then with those fees, then the associate member, and it's outlined, yeah, what additionally risk it mitigates. So there's still risk, absolutely. And that adding them as associate members provides direct liability coverage for their operations. It doesn't entirely transfer the risk away from the city. but it would provide that extra layer
Of
for
protection.
their own
Yeah.
staff's, say, negligence.
Just,
Further?
yes, thank you. The whole thing just makes me nervous. I know that the contract and stuff like that, we approved it a couple of years ago, and I'm just curious, there's parts of the contract that reads that the service provider through the manager shall provide an annual report to the city detailing all activities with respect to the park. And obviously you're not going to know have that answer here, but are they fulfilling their contractual obligations as well on those two parks? I'm not doubting the FTA or Fernie Pet Society, but I'm just curious about that. And in addition to that, I mean, I had to, in 2016, I ran the FMBC, and it was, we had all of our insurance and we had to name the city as an additional insured as well. So I'm just, yeah, I'm a little bit confused. I'm not an insurance expert, but I have lots of it.
Okay.
There's not really a question. It's just a bit of a rant, but I'm just nervous. That's all.
If
Thank
I
you,
may,
sorry.
I will ensure
Please.
I connect with the director who helps
Yeah.
manage the agreement and works with those parties for a review. Yeah.
Councillor Hamilton?
Well, Councillor Nixon's point brings up an potentially interesting avenue of approaching this. If they're not meeting their contractual agreement right now, either for one of those line items, could we perhaps, rather than going this route with the associate insurance, just reevaluate the contract immediately and update it so that maybe they don't need to send us a report annually, but we can then also insure them based on how we currently are. Again, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an insurance provider, so I don't know what the mechanism might be there.
If I may, I would seek legal counsel before
Yeah.
providing an answer.
Councillor McIsaac?
Thank you, Worship. Isn't it funny how insurance, which is supposed to give us some feelings of safety, and it's generated so much fear. I just wanted to be clear in my comments that I think we should move forward with the recommendation. I think it suits both us and those parties to ensure that we have the best relationship insurance-wise possible. I absolutely think that we should do that. My comments earlier were more around the case of, because we have not actually had a meeting where we discussed what the potential options were for that relationship, whether to ensure that both us and those groups are adequately protected. I would like to have that before we renew the agreement. I would prefer to not end the agreement now. Everybody's happy. We're moving along. I think this still provides adequate safety for us for the moment. I would just like, before we do the renewal, that we have that discussion. That's all.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with that, but particularly the comment made very succinctly, Ms. Neal, that we're not currently meeting the legal obligations as set out in the agreement. We should be doing that. Let's do that. We're not in a position to question their performance under those agreements at this juncture. That would be part of the review, either annual with the director or at the end when we renew the agreement. So I tend to agree with Councillor McIsaac that we advance this to ensure we're doing our part and we worry about the rest later. Thank you. Moved. Seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Any further discussion? Councillor Ramirez?
Is there anyone open to the idea of option 3, alternate direct staff otherwise resulting in the city remaining out of compliance with service provider agreement and carrying increased liability exposure? And it talks to what you said, Councillor Hamilton. All you're asking for is, let's go back and revisit their insurance due diligence right now and figure out whether it is adequate or not.
Sorry, what are you pointing to when you say option 3?
Option 3 is the alternate, direct staff otherwise to do that work before we come back and vote on this.
Oh, in the report.
Yeah. Because, and that's why I'm going back to my earlier comment, Your Worship, this seems like a COTW discussion and
Yeah, I think that's probably.
we feel like we are kind of voting on something and there's just a lot of questions that needs to be answered here. And to Councillor Shoesmith's point, I agree. Like if you go and ask an insurer if you want more insurance, they'll say, yes, hell yeah, go for more insurance. And we are like, yeah. I feel like we need to, I mean, I don't know if Hamilton or McIsaac, anyone wants an option 3 to be a motion here.
Well, the outstanding question from my mind would be when would we have that conversation? Like, when would that come back to council? And are we creating it, we're not risk-free now, but are we creating a larger window of exposure until such time as we sit down and discuss that?
I would have to confer on when it would come back, but yes, it would definitely be creating a longer window of exposure, and it depends how full our council agendas are in the next
Fair.
few weeks, which I believe are
Be
full.
quite full. Yeah. Councilor Kelly?
Thanks, your worship. Just to be clear, because I didn't feel like Councillor Nixon's question was really answered. I know when I was president of minor hockey, we had to prove to the city that we carried insurance that covered all of our participants, including our board, et cetera. So I'm assuming that the Trails Alliance and the pets do have insurance.
And naming us as an additionally insured with that
They're-
certificate.
They're
at that
naming
level.
us as an additionally insured. Okay.
Councilor Hamilton?
To answer Councilor Ramadas's question and to continue the metaphor, I would like to see us close that window as soon as possible, but also bring this back as a discussion point as soon as possible on how do we amend the agreements. Rather than waiting until 2027, start that discussion now, see if the counterparties are amenable to an earlier update, or at least get our ducks in a row so that we have it all organized for that date.
Yeah, I feel it feels irresponsible to do nothing in terms of waiting, but to Councilor Ramdas' point, yes, I think we need to understand this better and understand the nature of the agreements more, and the varying degrees of performance under those agreements, but I'm probably sure is stellar. But I'd like to close that window now and then have this conversation when we can.
Okay.
So all those in favor? Thank you. And hopefully somebody's making a note about, perhaps you can confer with our director. No. Yeah, fair enough. Okay. So we need a mover and a seconder for the second recommendation that covers the Pet Society. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Audie Kelly. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Item 11.2, Best Western Statutory Right-of-Way, a report from our Director of Planning. He groaned when he got up there. Just hit that. Me too. Help yourself.
Yeah.
Director Lennox, welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Flanagan, Council.
Just click.
Okay, the first item I have for council's perusal tonight is the temporary closure of a portion of a statutory right-of-way that goes through the Best Western parking lot. It was established when that subdivision went through many years ago to create the Best Western lot. So the address is 1622 7th Avenue So Best Western, as council knows, is under construction with their addition. They've received a building permit for that. The foundation is installed. The SRW in question is registered and titled in favor of the city of Fernie, and it allows for full ingress and egress for the public through that site, as well as access for maintenance at the city's discretion or undertaking. So the SRW in question is the vertical orange line on the right. The applicant is requesting this temporary closure for safety reasons. And for further clarification, I was talking to one of the representatives yesterday, and they're going to get into full bore construction here with the bringing on a crane. So with the crane present there, they certainly don't want the public to have access while it's there and working on the building. So majority of the construction is going to be done by the end of April, according to this individual. So that's kind of the time frame for the temporary nature of this closure, just to give people an idea of how long this encumbrance will be in effect. The fire department will have access while the temporary closure is in effect through a gate, and they'll have a key to that gate. The three property owners or businesses in proximity to the closure have been contacted by the applicant, and they've provided written confirmation that they're aware of the closure and they have no serious concerns. So do you want me to read the recommendations? Or
That's okay at this
yeah, we
juncture.
can leave that to the
Director.
corporate officer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Councillor Ravenous and Councillor Hamilton.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'm a little directionally challenged, Director Lennox. I tried to read that, but I didn't understand. So as I'm coming out of, say, the Loop Shop
Louvers, yep,
from Extra Foods,
yep.
right? So that's the
So you-
corridor that goes to,
Yeah, you make an immediate left, so that's going to remain open.
yeah,
And then you turn right and you go perpendicular through the parking lot.
yeah,
And then you go to Fairway Drive intersection.
right.
So that section there is the area that's going to be temporarily closed.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now that is closed. You can't access the trail either by the.
Correct, yeah.
You cannot access the trail also.
Yeah, the trail or?
The trail which runs
Yes,
from.
yeah, the whole point of this exercise is to keep the public out of this area
So the
while there's
entire,
intensive construction going on.
so the entire rectangle being that the trail on your, I can't remember what direction.
North.
North, yeah,
yeah.
north. Then east and west on either end to 6th Avenue on the
Mhm.
east, on the east side, and on the west side to the Loop Shop, and on the south side to the lawn that ends for Best Western.
Yeah, this section of the trail would be just immediately, I'm getting directionally challenged to
Yeah,
north of where we're talking about,
okay,
just that section.
all right, thank you, sorry.
Yeah.
Your
No,
Worship,
not at
I
all.
was-
Yeah, I also I forgot to mention, one of the other reasons why they want to close this is that they don't want to be dealing with snow removal.
Okay.
As well during construction to keep it open for the public. So yeah, that was a bit of an encumbrance too for them.
Councillor Hamilton and then Councillor
I
Nixon.
had the exact same question, just trying to visualize where this was.
Okay. Councillor Nixon and then Councillor Shoesmith.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, so this is the teenagers, they leave the school and they walk right through this parking lot. So I would suggest to Best Western, the constructors, to build a very high wall because those kids will be jumping over the wall.
Yeah, and that actually was,
Yeah.
that segment of the population was brought up.
Yeah.
As a justification for doing this.
Yeah, and
by
this
the
is,
applicant.
this is super smart. When they first started constructing there, I would go over and get a coffee and the kids at lunchtime, and it was just a stream and it was just a mess. So
Yeah.
this is very, very smart to do this
Yeah,
before
thank
somebody
you.
gets hurt.
Councillor Shoesmith.
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. Of course, that comes to my mind as well. I was actually wondering, so as I understand it, the next nearest way for all those kids to get their McDonald's fix at lunch is going to be walking all the way around the building, correct? all the way
Yeah,
around
or-
the Best Western.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Or
Not the worst thing.
the-
And then my only
McDonald's.
other concern, I kind of ran out of time halfway through reading that one. So, there is like a sunset, like it's going to be closed for a certain amount of time. They're not going to just renew a permit and then just,
No, yeah,
Okay.
they want to get it open. They want to get the construction
of
done
course they do.
as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
In a test and, they'll want to open up as soon as possible.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're cognizant of the other, Lubers and the coffee shop and the liquor store, they're well aware that they want to see the flow back to what it was to continue business as usual.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Audie Kelly?
Thanks, Your Worship. Director Lennox just pretty much answered my question. I just wanted to ensure that we have consulted and, Starbucks and the liquor store and those businesses are aware.
Yes.
And the kids could walk behind Aldo's and come out.
Councillor McIsaac?
Thank you, Your Worship. They're closing this for safety, keeping emergency access open. All the neighbors are in favor. Kids could walk a few extra steps if they need to get at McDonald's. This is a no-brainer. Move.
I'll ask our corporate officer to read the recommendation.
Staff recommendation is that council authorize the temporary closure of a portion of the statutory right-of-way SRW identified on legal plan EPP 64650 on Lot A and Lot B, District Lot 4588, Kootenai District Plan EPP 64649, and that council authorize the mayor and corporate officer to create a side care indemnity agreement as well as execute all documentation required for the temporary closure of the statutory right-of-way following the requisite public notice.
Moved by Councillor McIsaac, seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Any further discussion? Just one quick question. When you say a crane, is it a hammerhead crane? Are they erecting a crane on the site or are they bringing a mobile crane in?
I think they're bringing a mobile crane.
Okay,
Yeah.
and a comment, it is already, I'm sure Councillor Nixon is, well, probably all of us have seen this riding my bike through there. It is pretty congested now.
Mhm.
So I think this is wise on all parties' behalf.
Yeah.
So with that, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. Staying with the Director Lennox show, we now have the BC Hydro Statutory right-of-way for 692 Third.
Okay, Mayor and Council, this pertains to blanket statutory right away for BC Hydro, the applicants for the mixed use affordable housing project and office commercial at grade have requested that we move ahead and bring this to council. So this pertains to the old fire hall site. As council knows, that building has been demolished. So we're in the process of, we're getting really close for issuing the building permit for this. So it's a great asset for the community moving forward. So it's 692 3rd Avenue. So as I mentioned, in terms of background purpose, the demolition permit was issued, building's gone. The applicant has requested the blanket SRW for BC Hydro purposes to facilitate servicing of the site for underground and above ground utility. Council were to move this forward, this blanket SRW, a public notice would be given in accordance with the community charter. Any works proposed by BC Hydro would be reviewed by the applicable city departments, particularly in the context of the development permit that's been issued. And that's it in terms of the recommendation. The corporate officer I'll defer that to her. Council has any questions?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and read the recommendation and then we'll discuss.
Staff recommendation is that council authorize public notice in accordance with Section 26 of the Community Charter charter for the proposed disposition of an interest in land being the grant of statutory right of way to BC Hydro and Power Authority for underground utility purposes to be located on parcel A, being a consolidation of lots 11 and 12, CCB 2086799, Block 18, District Lot 4580, Kootenai District Plan 734, and that council authorize the mayor and corporate officer to execute all documentation to execute the disposition of the statutory rights of way following the requisite public notice.
Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Audie Kelly. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is unanimous.
thank you.
Thank you. And finally.
Oh, nice.
Well played. Fernie Childcare lease modification, a report from our Director of Finance on behalf of our CAO.
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. I don't have a slideshow. It's just the lease as it is in your report and the accompanying report. There was a vacancy in Max Turk, and Fernie Childcare Society expressed interest in that vacancy. And I believe Mr. Logan and maybe Mr. Bornowski has had discussions with other tenants, and this was the only interest in that space. So thank you. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you. I'll actually ask the corporate officer to read the recommendation first off.
Certainly. Staff recommendation is that council endorse the proposed lease modification agreement as attached to this report with the Fernie Childcare Society, and that council authorize the mayor and corporate officer to execute the agreement once public notification is complete.
Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Audie Kelly. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you, ladies. Pretty anticlimactic.
Pretty
exactly.
anticlimactic, yeah.
And you did. Thank you. So you forgive me. Thank you, ladies. I'm going to skip over council reports. And we will first, I'll first ask for a resolution to go past 10.
Yep.
Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Ramirez. I do apologize. All those in favor? Any opposed? Well, we can come back to that afterwards if that's okay. Let's just see how we make it through this agenda. And I'll ask you to read the
Yep,
closure
I can do that.
recommendation. Thank you.
Staff recommendation to go in camera, that the meeting be closed to the public pursuant to section 91A of the Community Charter again, as the subject matter being considered at this time relates to personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality, or any position appointed by the municipality, and that the meeting be closed to the public pursuant to section 91E of the Community Charter, as the subject matter being considered at this time relates to the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements, if the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality.
Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Nixon. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. We are now going in camera. So I will thank everybody for joining us this evening and thank all our staff for their support as we send